and you?
Well, my
That's
videos
right.
are still photos, my voiceover.
Oh, 8 photos for both.
But still, that, I don't see.
13 is some.
Yeah, this one's,
We don't like this.
my laser surgery is like wearing off. I have surgery again, but no, I just got them about a month and a half, 2 months ago. But I'm gonna go back to another laser surgery yet. I can't stand these glasses. Call the meeting of the North Reading School Committee to order. I'm Bill Webster, I'm the vice chair, and I'm filling in for Mrs. Market tonight, who had some dental surgery, is unable to speak.
My name is Heather Holden Metcalf, 7 Stonecliff Road. From reading the paper and the agenda that was published in last week's paper for tonight's meeting, I understand that there are 2 items on the agenda this evening that I'd like to provide public input. The first one is, I believe it will be second reading of the policy on sexual harassment. And also the approval of the high school handbook for student and parents. I sit here both as a parent and as a member of the high school council. And I would like to just make the school committee and the community aware of a couple of facts. Number one, as outlined with Education Reform 93, the high school handbook is to be reviewed on an annual basis by the high school council. As a member of the council, I can tell you that that has not happened in the last 2 years. We as a council have not been able to eke out the time, if you will, or set aside the appropriate amount of time, in my opinion, to effectively review the handbook. And where that comes into play is where you're looking to adopt a new policy on sexual harassment. The policy on sexual harassment that has been included in the high school handbook for a number of years is not student reader friendly. I don't think that the average high school student who reads that policy in the handbook understands exactly what sexual harassment is and what it means for them. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a copy of the new proposed policy, neither was a copy of the handbook forwarded to the high school council members for us to see it before it's approved tonight. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The concern would be that I understand that policies have to follow a certain legal dictum and that, but when we then include them in the handbook for the students and the parents, I think that it needs to be worded in language that is easily understood by the constituents to whom the handbook is distributed. And so while you will do second reading tonight and I'm sure approve a new a new policy, I'm afraid that what's going to be included in the handbook is not going to be something that is student or parent friendly, so that students and their parents understand what constitutes sexual harassment. I would also like to say that at the last school committee meeting, which I believe was June the 23rd, comments were made by the superintendent referring to a member of the high school council who seemed to think that it was appropriate for high school council members to make policy. I believe that the person this superintendent was referring to is myself, because I sent an email to all members of the high school council stating my concerns about the handbook. And knowing firsthand that the school district has gone through an investigation conducted by the Office of Civil Rights in the last year with regards to compliance, and that I knew that there was an agreement that the school district entered into with the Office of Civil Rights to come into compliance or to remain in compliance, and that there are certain timelines that were set out in that agreement, and those timelines didn't really allow for the language because the Office of Civil Rights had to approve the language, and that for it to be viewed by school council members prior to the handbook, I presume, being created, and after you approve it tonight, it will go to the printers for distribution in August. So I just wanted to be heard on those two items. I have, in my email to the other high school council members, said that I really would like it to be a priority that next year we do effectively set a goal and execute on that goal of reviewing the handbook from the point of view of, do the students and the parents find it user-friendly? For example, if we're going to put a new policy in there about sexual harassment, it would seem probably prudent to have students review the policy and see if they understand it before we adopt it and put it into the handbook, as with some of the other policies that are included in there. So again, I understand that there's the policy that's a school committee policy that appears in the policy manual, and then that same information has to be disseminated to students and parents and the rest of the constituents, but it needs to be done in a way that is understandable.
Okay, thank you. Let Dr. Trout, if you want to
Oh,
address the
absolutely.
council review of the.
Yeah, as I
policy.
said in my last meeting, and I will state it again today, Mrs. Metcalf, school council members do not develop policy. That is a responsibility under the law for the school committee to develop policy, not school council members. So you did send me an email, and I absolutely will stick to that provision. School council members do not develop policy. As far as the handbook is concerned, it is our requirement, as I'm sure you understand, that in the student handbook there are school committee policies, and those policies must follow both state and federal law. There is no deviation in the student handbooks. You'll see the same policies written in our elementary handbook when they are quoting state and federal law. The interpretation of that and the education of students is something that falls on the responsibility of the principal. And I can assure you that our principals review the handbooks with students to make sure that they understand that. In fact, we also have our students and our parents sign off on the receipt of that handbook. And if they have any questions, I'm sure that the principals are more than willing to sit down with those either individual students collectively and or parents to review them. That's the process that we use here in North Reading. And I'm sure that you can understand how that process works. As far as harassment is concerned, what the school committee is doing tonight is differentiating the current policy on harassment so that it pertains particularly to employees and also to students. And the part that refers to students will be written as a policy and included in the student handbook. The handbook is always open for review by high school council members. Anyone can make suggestions. It's not a specific goal. It's not something that needs to be listed out. But the high school council is more than willing, and as a current member of the high school council, you know the amount of work that goes into the high school in terms of setting goals for the future. So I'm very aware of the comments that you had raised with me previously about your concerns. They certainly have been shared with the high school principal, and I'm sure as a high school council member, you'll continue to support and talk about these issues with the members of the high school council. The minutes of high school council meetings are shared publicly with the school committee. These are public meetings. Anyone is entitled to attend those meetings, to come in and voice their concerns. So thank you for bringing that information up tonight, and we'll certainly consider what you have to say.
I know that Mr. Venezia has one question for.
Dr. Trump, just one question. Is it a requirement or past practice of the high school council to review the handbook?
Not specifically.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak, public input? Okay, thank you. I'm going to skip around. We have a few items I wanted to get to. Mr. Nelson has to leave us a little early tonight, so there are a few items I want to get to. First is some awards of appreciation that I know Carl would like to speak about. We've had an ongoing project going on for, I think, the last 30 to 35 years to update our accounting system, and I think Carl would like to address that tonight.
I think so.
Okay. Well, I would first ask our three honorees to step up to the table.
We won't bite.
These three?
Kathy, the one who calls me to come up to school every day to sign something? What's going
Is
on?
it possible to file harassment
Against
against her? Against that one right there, the
No,
blue?
in the blue. Go ahead, Carl.
You know, you joke about 30, 35 years ago, it might seem that long. About a year and a half ago, the genesis of this project was started by a town technology committee who felt that our present accounting system was antiquated, in need of updating. So through a process, a vendor was selected, and if those of us who have been involved in accounting conversions know that in many ways it's possibly the most single difficult project that you will endure in your career, an accounting conversion. I won't bore you with the specifics of it, but I can tell you that it not only involves a complete rewrite of our chart of accounts, an integration of that chart with the town, but all kinds of reviews of our policies and procedures. And the deeper you go, the more complicated it can become. And in the business office, we not only do accounting and payroll, but we are the receptionists, we are the personnel assistants, we keep attendance, we handle bids. It's a public place. And one of the concerns I had as we embarked upon this project was whether we would be able to implement this process at the same time that we're doing our jobs. We did not bring in any extra help to perform this work. So over the past year and a half, Maggie, Steve, and Kathy have not only worked judiciously to implement this project, but they've done their present work with nary a hesitancy whatsoever. I can't tell you how outstanding these individuals have performed on behalf of the citizens of North Reading and the employees of North Reading Public Schools. Payroll checks were implemented the first week of July. The paper looked different, but nary a question from the 400-odd checks that have been issued in the last 2 weeks. Vendors are being paid, purchase orders are being issued, department heads are entering requisitions, and not only are these three folks doing this, but they're doing it with a smile. Now, I don't know what's beneath that smile, but I can't tell you how privileged I am to work with Kathy Amaral, Steve Hardery, and Maggie Dalton, because they've not only made this process go well, but they've done it with class, dignity, and accuracy. So I think it's important that we take a moment to acknowledge their efforts.
I'd just like to add, before we hand out these certificates of award here, or these award certificates, that I know we don't have an overstaffed office at our central office here at the school. It's essentially these three, and there are a few other folks that do help. And we kid Kathy about her harassing us to come and sign things. She'll only call you 4 or 5 times a day to make sure you get there. But they do work extremely hard. This project has been a bear from day one, and the fact that it went online on July 1st as planned, I think is just a testament to the hard work that went into it. So,
And I feel guilty with all the work they have to do in the office, and they do. Kathy has to call me to tell me to come over, and then call me 10 minutes later to see if I remembered. And that, I swear to God, that happened just last week, and it happens all the time. So I'm not gonna do that anymore, because she got a lot of work to do.
I think Kathy does have the most difficult job, but now she calls, and she doesn't even ask me to call back. She just says, she talks to my wife and says, have your husband call if he can't come to sign. So now we have a system. If I can't come, I call. If I come, I show up. I'm there. Everybody's happy. So, I don't know if anybody else has any comments to make. It's just been a big project.
I've been through this change in accounting systems in a company, and I can tell you that my experience is not as easy as this. It was a total disaster, and there were 2 or 3 months when we weren't sure we were going to survive the